tomorrow. Hey man, have you heard the new Coheed record yet?
Yep, I sure did. Sure did.
What'd you think of it?
You sure you want to know?
I just felt like they've been on a downward spiral ever since they started this new pentology. Why, what'd you think of it?
Me, I personally think this is the best thing they've released in nearly 20 years.
Are you insane? Tell me, what'd you think of Color Before the Sun?
It wasn't really related to the concept, so I didn't really get into it.
I always hate going in there.
Here we are in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I need to talk about this band because I feel like I'm going insane. If you couldn't already tell by that skit at the start, not really a big fan of this new album. Yet I seem to be alone in this because everyone is loving this, saying that it's like their best stuff, their best material in years, and it's drawing in all these new fans. And after almost a month of spinning it around the house, listening to it, and trying to gather my thoughts on it, find something that I might be missing, I think I'm ready to give my thoughts on this. Now, obviously, I mentioned a lot of people are really loving this new album, and I know that at least Josh and Travis are more active on social media out of the band. And so when I say this, it's all coming from a place of love and appreciation for everything that they've done, even to this point. I still appreciate that they're still going forward and making music and doing all the stuff that it seems like they want to do, and they're having a lot of fun doing it. And I do not want to shit on that. I do not want to do that at all. That's not why I'm here. I just really feel like I'm missing something, and I really want to figure out what that may be. But there's just some things that I gotta say about this album that may not be the nicest or what people necessarily want to hear. So if we can agree to disagree on this, that's cool. So let's do a quick recap on the band to bring us back up to speed. Coheed and Cambria are a rock band formed around Nyack, New York in the mid-90s, and they performed under the name Shabooty until about 2002, when they changed to Coheed and Cambria and dropped the album's second stage, Turbine Blade. Later, the band's frontman Claudio Sanchez would release comics alongside the albums under the title of The Amory Wars. Initially from the more hardcore, post-hardcore punk scene, they would start adopting sounds from psychedelia for their follow-up releases In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3, Good Apollo Volumes 1 and 2, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness, and No World for Tomorrow. They dig back into their more aggressive punk sounds on Year of the Black Rainbow, the prequel to everything that we heard on the first 4 albums. And then there's a few lineup changes around that time as well. After that first pentology, we then get into the Afterman series, which is a double album that takes place at the same time as all the other events of the story, but they follow completely separate goings-on with Cyrus Amory. And we take a break from the concept with Color Before the Sun, which is an album that Claudio wanted to do with his band around the time that his wife was expecting their son Atlas. And his goal was to capture the feelings and anxious anticipations of becoming a new father. And now, here we are at the new pentology. We've got 2 entries so far, Unheavenly Creatures and Window of the Waking Mind. I actually do have a video of Window of the Waking Mind here around the time of its release if you want to check that out after you're done with this. Mostly this video is cataloging all the ways that I feel crazy for disliking their modern releases, and I'll probably end up rehashing a lot of the same criticisms because they're still doing a lot of the same things that I dislike. Let's lay some groundwork for the video, and let's talk about the kind of music production and sounds that I appreciate personally, because It's my review. What are you going to do about it? Cry? Go ahead. Most of it can be... I'm sorry. I apologize. Please don't hurt me. To lay some groundwork for this video, I want to talk a little bit about music production and the kinds of sounds that I appreciate. Most of it can be drawn back to the idea of synthetic and organic instrumentation or production. One quick caveat on that is that synthesizers can be organic even if the sound isn't something from a normal instrument in that regard. I guess it's more of like a mental state, or it's coming from that kind of philosophically nebulous region of the brain we all just kind of collectively agree to call vibes. If I were to chart Coheed's organicness over time, it would be pretty good, and then, unheavenly creatures, and then, Vaxus. Claude's incorporation of more and more fuzz on almost everything, mixed with the overproduction similar to the last album, Vaxus 2, they follow suit into this new one as well, the father of make-believe. And with that, let's get into the album proper. And we start with Yesterday's Lost. An atmospheric piano leads us in with the motif from the Hollow on Afterman Ascension, and this leads into a delicate acoustic section with kalimbas, the little thumb piano thing, and what sounds like either ukulele or its bastard child, the gitalele. Some softer synths in the background as well, Claude's usual vocal production, layers and harmonies, stuff like that. The lyrics appear to be coming from Creature's perspective, talking to his son Vaxus. I can't help but notice how infantile we're still treating Vaxus at this point, since we're just over halfway through this current saga. He hadn't even been born in the first act, and then now that he's born, he sees how people act after that, and he doesn't want anything to do with it, and yet he's brought into this whole world by circumstance in the second act. He's implied to have some kind of omniscience or precognition. Claudio has actually mentioned that in an interview, if I recall. If I can find the link to an article, I will put that in the description. At this point, Vaxus hasn't even left the tube that's keeping him alive yet, and there's still this whole thing going on around him, although I'm having trouble seeing his particular significance to the overall story yet, as of right now. I will admit I'm not exactly read up on the lore of this particular saga, as I don't have the spare money to exchange for the books that go with each album, and so I apologize for my ignorance here if there's anything I say as I interpret this album that is completely dead wrong. I'm sorry. I just haven't gotten to the actual books. I'm just kind of skimming the wikis for this newer stuff right now. I'm trying to just get all the important parts of the story here and trying to figure out where it all comes through in the music. Not saying that the songs need to exactly spell out the entire story from, beginning to end right then and there. You can hide stuff, you can occlude things, you can imply things, and you can do this and that. And when you listen to the album, it may not all entirely make sense. Lord knows the first couple albums don't entirely make sense if you're just going by the lyrics and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Holy shit, this book adds an entirely different dimension to the music that you listen to. I already loved Good Apollo Burning Star 4, but after I read this book and I saw all the narrative back and forth, all the meta stuff going on, it... S tier. I'm already spoiling part of the video for you. S tier already. So do we have a deal on the whole, the whole not knowing this new saga bit, story beat by story beat, the 'cause I'm poor deal? Okay, cool. Appreciate it. You're really cool. I actually really like you. What is this crass homunculus of photons saying to me now? Getting into the first actual song on the album here, we have the track Goodbye Sunshine. This is an upbeat, driving rock power ballad with some millennial woes thrown in on the back end. This is a fairly solid use of the formula that we're going to see kind of throughout the album. They do very well with this verse, chorus, bridge, chorus structure on the vast majority of their catalog, and the songwriting is mostly solid here within that structure as well. The verses are a little lame and sparse. The highlights are definitely the pre-chorus and the chorus. I do wish that I could hear Travis's guitar lead on the chorus just a little more. This song also has a new tendency of Claude's that I'm not particularly a fan of, and that's to incorporate piano breakdowns in the bridge of the song or as a repetition of the chorus. Here we get the latter, and it's not a particularly good rendition of it either. We're just getting some single piano notes under Claude's squeakier kind of mixed voice with what sounds like a lot of post-processing, fuzz, autotune, or some kind of mix of those. And it's on such a bare-bones section of the song, it really makes it stand out kind of in a bad way. Decent track overall, and it's one of the few that I come back to on this album pretty regularly. That and this next one, Searching for Tomorrow. Goodbye Sunshine transitions into this track with a pitch bend down of the guitars at the end, and it sets us off with this quicker paced synth backed by the band and Travis's counterpoint guitar line. In some ways it does kind of remind me of the track 33 from their debut, Second Stage. And if you want some more in-depth thoughts on this track, I actually do have a reaction video of it here around the time that it was released as a single. So you can check that out and, after you're done here. But in the meantime, we'll smoothly metrically modulate into the title track, The Father of Make-Believe. Because it metrically modulates into the Father of Make-Believe, the Father of Make-Believe, the Father of Make-Believe. There's some powerful opening chords with what I think of as their trademark noodly guitar work. From a narrative standpoint, it's tough to say who's speaking here. Is it Vaxis? Is it Creature? Is it another character that hasn't been named yet? Who's seeing the opposition in the first verse? What point of view do we have here? I especially want to highlight Zach Cooper's bass playing here, but also on this album as a whole. He has some really cool parts that he writes underneath some of the more by the numbers, generic sections that appear in some sections of the album. Not saying that this song is particularly one of them, but elsewhere. He does very well given what I think are some pretty hard songs to swallow. Like this next one, Mary of Mercy. I wish this song had mercy on me. I'm gonna be real with you on this one. Not a fan. I just get AJR vibes if they decided to have absolutely blaring drums and guitars. It sounds like Disney film music, which is not what I'm listening to Coheed for. This is, at least to my ears, the laziest song of the album. It isn't really saying anything to advance the story other than a small reflection on age and life catching up to you. So this song sounds like it's coming from Creature's voice, but then it's talking about how the narrator wants to be with Mary. So who even is our narrator here? It even has one of those piano breakdowns that I mentioned earlier in a piano-centric song. It's just so saccharine and sweet, it's tough for me to listen to. And that breakdown is interrupted by Josh just absolutely beating the shit out of his drums with this groove. I know Josh hits hard in general, but he's had a much better sense of dynamics on their previous releases. I do appreciate the quieter guitar or the uke in the right side of the mix on the chorus. Anyway, next track. Alright, here's the first single they dropped for this album, Blindside Sunny. When I first heard this, and then saw that it was just over 2 minutes, I was fairly disappointed. There's this 2-bar guitar riff that starts it off, and it goes on for a verse and a half, which is a pretty good chunk of the song. Also, the child-esque, yeah, give us some, just makes me cringe. Claude's vocals are also kind of buried in the mix during the verses, giving me a hard time for this character to come across personally. I'm sure the character is really cool, judging by the art that was released for the single around the time, and when the instruments cut out at the first verse and you get this pretty menacing, "Your ass is no longer welcome here," I still think that's cool. This song does, however, still sort of act as a microcosm for pretty much all the problems that I have with modern Coheed. The drum samples that Josh has in the past say, "Don't put samples on my drums," the massive guitars, and the relatively predictable and formulaic songwriting. It does have a cool breakbeat transition into my favorite track on the album, Play the Poet. This song is pretty close to what I would be looking for as far as modern Coheed is concerned. There's an aggressive edge that actually cuts for me, unlike a lot of the other tracks on this, which feel kind of forced. There's really solid arranging and songwriting within that structure formula that I'd mentioned, and there's some emo rock adjacent tendencies in the chorus, vocally, along with the chord progression as well. It's just all around a kick-ass track and not much more to it. Let's go ahead and move on. One Last Miracle is a sort of mid-tier track, but I can still appreciate it. Josh's playing is a little bit more varied, with some ghost note fills during the verse and the pre-chorus, and the melodies are very catchy. It does kind of suffer from a lame bridge, like the title track, Blindside Sunny, Mary of Mercy, which that one doesn't even have a bridge. Still, fairly decent track. I can dig it. Corner My Confidence is an acoustic love song between Creature and Spider, which I honestly feel we have enough of these sprinkled throughout with the other songs throughout the rest of the saga thus far. It's still a cute song, and my ears might be deceiving me, but it almost sounds like the acoustic guitar is recorded on Claude's old 4-track cassette recorder. Either that, or it has a lot of processing, but I would not be surprised at all if it's analog, given that he does release acoustic demos of songs from Vaxxus 2 and other albums on cassette for the extreme diehards. He also tends to write everything acoustically first before making the decision on whether or not to transfer it to electric. And now we get the final single of this new album run with the song Someone Who Can. It's a decent track, bright, summery, catchy. You can actually hear Travis's guitar line pretty clearly here, and it's not smacking you in the face. It does still have Josh hitting as hard as he can for most of the track, when I would wish for just a little more dynamics, or even just a little more attitude. Like, open up the hats, let them slosh around. Keep that 4 on the floor, just add a little extra spice. Stuff like that. Everything just feels very rigid with Josh's drum sound. The guitars here actually sound pretty good. It's not like this super ungodly thick distortion that's going on the rest of the album, and it's kind of nice and crunchy. The lead guitars might have some odd tone choices here and there, but nothing really distracting from the vibe of the track. You know, as singles go, it's kind of but it's good. Alright, now we're getting... Whoa, I just spit all over my mic. Now we're getting into the prog zone. We start with the track The Continuum 1, Welcome to Forever, Mr. Nobody, with the All-Mother from the Afterman saying, Internal battery low. Cyrus, would you like to initiate freefall? So this is our confirmation that we're actually intersecting Cyrus Amory's stories with the other characters of this new saga. It's, again, difficult to see the point of view this song is particularly coming from. This is the introduction of Cyrus Amory's involvement in the story, so I am partial to assuming that it's his. Is it he then talking to Vaxxus during the chorus with life isn't fair, but it gets worse when you're going nowhere? The track doesn't really land for me personally, even though I know Josh, the drummer, this is like one of his favorite songs. I saw it on Twitter or something like that. Also, Mr. Nobody. Is that a Odyssey reference? Because there's another little reference that he makes in another song that, it's actually the title of another song, but we'll get to that when we get to it. I think it's another kind of like cool literary reference that he might be throwing in there. Not entirely sure. I know he's a well-read guy. I know Claude is he's very steeped in like monster movies and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, he really reminds me of my English teacher. On to The Flood, The Continuum Part 2, my specialty. On the first few passes, The Flood seemed to be a bit sluggish for me. It has grown on me a lot. The pre-chorus and the chorus have some really cool lines, and Josh has some really fun drum fills about halfway through the track. The one hang-up I do have on this song, the synth trumpets on the back end. Why? When... I'm not even using my prompter for this. I'm just raw dogging this part because it's like, why would you?
You're this far into your career. You're 25 years into your career as a band. You have never used MIDI, synth, horns, or whatever.
You've actually used real musicians for all of your orchestral stuff. Even on Color Before the Sun with Peace to the Mountain, y'all got some horn players in on that bitch.
Why would you cheap out and go with MIDI right now when you have never used it in your entire discography? And it sounds like shit. I'm sorry, those horns do not need to be there because you you clearly have the budget to get an actual horn player for this. I just don't. I don't understand it. On to the next. Onto the Continuum Part 3. It starts with this motif from the start of Domino the Destitute from the Afterman Ascension on a distant, really reverb-soaked piano. When the song properly starts, it feels like they could have found a way to tether this song to the last one. Being in the same key and feel, just make it a big prog journey. These two very easily could sync up with each other. At this point, the album's getting kind of tiring to listen to. It doesn't help that they're telling you, we'll sing together from the first verse to the last word. I don't wanna. And so I feel like the sequencing of this album kind of suffers the same sort of issues that Vaxis 1 did. Closing this album out is the fourth part in the Continuum saga, So It Goes. Hey, there's that little bit there. Tralfamadorians, Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse 5, So It Goes. This song gives me AJR vibes again, and yet again, the production is just too heavy for what I feel like they're going for. As tender as this track may sound and what I think the intended association with the phrase of So It Goes, again, Slaughterhouse 5, to me this album hasn't really done enough work to make me care about the characters in order to earn that association.
Hey, Future Noah coming to you from outside. I realized I didn't necessarily talk about the ending of Part 4 after the AJR-esque section at the start. The orchestral section. Again, it sounds like they got real instruments on that. So it, even within the Continuum series, it kind of baffles me that The Flood had synth horns on it, and we have what sounds like actual orchestral elements on the back end of this track. And it's actually really cool because it leads into the motif from Afterman Descension, Pretty-Lethal. The who will repair this broken heart.
Instead of this grander story that I think Claudio could develop around his feelings as a father, we get something that feels like he's kind of playing around, but also wants it to be taken very seriously at the same time, which are two flavors that just do not really work for me. Now, I've been a fan of this band for almost a decade at this point, and I got into them around the time they dropped Color Before the Sun, which was Claude's raw feelings and emotions about being an upcoming father and how he was going to handle that. And that was completely unfiltered by the concept. You can hear him wrestle with all the rhetorical situations that he writes with himself. And you can hear the passion in the performances, mostly due to how the production lets the instruments actually breathe while still having their own appropriate character for the band's material.
And I also just want to say that, I talk about The Color Before the Sun quite a bit. There is a song on there called The Audience, which kind of details Claude's frustrations with not being able to deliver exactly what the fans want. And so I just want to bring a little bit of self-awareness to that and acknowledge that I am kind of playing into that, but I feel like I do my best to back up my perspective and where I feel this shift has just really, really kind of taken form. So I just want to bring some awareness to that and say, yes, I am kind of playing into that role as like the audience member. But I feel like that's just kind of part of the creative process, is that you're not really going to please everyone and you can't really let it get to you. Not that I'm saying that Claude is necessarily letting it get to him. But he is expressing his frustrations on that song and that album. And that is his raw feelings. It's not colored by the concept in any way.
I know Claudio's consistently capable of this kind of writing because in Good Apollo Volume 1, it's all a huge meta-narrative where both of his self-inserts, yes, I said both, are talking to each other. And he's the one writing a script for both of them. He has the writing chops, and you can hear him use those on pretty much every single release up until Vaxis Act 1. That's why it's hit me a little sideways that these newer albums are lacking that kind of quality and thought going into these songs, especially so abruptly after what I consider to be one of their best albums. From the production, to the lyrics, to the instrumental writing, and the predictable arranging, these newer albums are some of their weakest materials to date. And the new one here just continues that trend for me. If I were to give this album a rating, I would give it a decent to strong 4. Very unfortunately.
Transition. Let me know what you thought about this album, and I'm definitely ripping off Anthony Fantano like I have been doing my entire YouTube channel so far. So if you want to see some more of that, along with some video essays, I got one coming down the pipe. It just took a long time because I had to read a book. But, you know, thank you for watching, and bye-bye.